This is Kickoff, and I'm back here with Mikael. Lots to talk about the World Cup football. I got a 15-20 minute lecture before I got in where the mic should be and how should I talk. After all these years, I'm still learning. But Mikael, it's great to have you back on Kickoff, my friend.
Yeah, great to be back. I'm just going to say, what a treat. What a treat to be back on the greatest show in not just radio history, but multimedia, any platform you can think of. It's this one. It's Kickoff.
You've got to be joking when you say all that. But it's been a great week for football. Actually, it's been a great 48 hours for World Cup football. We've had some incredible games. For me, I'm going to call it the World Cup of substitutes, because if you look at it, what the subs have done in this World Cup is incredible. We'll get to that as we get into the show, but run us through the last 48 hours, because they were 72. How about you start with 72, Mikael?
I mean, I don't even know where do we start. I think in terms of the first World Cup I ever saw, I think that I remember was the World Cup 2002, and as far as I can remember, there's never been a World Cup with more exciting group stage matches. Typically, you have the group stages a little bit slow, and then it's the knockouts where things really get going. This time around, I mean, group stages were just unbelievable. The last day of the group, right? All the matches in every group were played at the same time to create that, end of the season Premier League drama where you don't know what the result's going to be. But it was just incredible. Where do we start?
Should I just, one of the things that I noticed, and I don't know how you feel about it, is that it's not necessarily just being tactically smart and have a game plan, but I think a lot depended on how fit you were physically, because if you saw, most of the turning points and most of the pivotal moments came towards the second half. So what I'm trying to say is that you had to be really physically strong and to score the kind of goals that you saw in the second half. If you saw most of them, 60% of them actually came towards the dying minutes of the second half.
Yeah, I mean the game yesterday with the Korea, the games the day before with Spain, Germany, Costa Rica, that entire just absolute madness. 1-1 going into halftime. I think a certain someone was about to go to sleep, and then another 6 goals came in, or 7 or 8 goals.
And by the way, I'm going to narrate this. I actually went to sleep because I said it's 1-0. There's no way that anything's going to happen. And I'm 45 minutes into deep sleep, and I get woken up that you've got to get up and see what's happening. But incredible. I mean, heartwarming for the South Koreans. I beg your pardon. Just unreal.
It's got to be the assist of the tournament so far. That assist from Son, where he had 5 players on him, picked out a peach of a pass. What a beautiful goal. What a beautiful assist. And South Korea doing it again. Harken back to, 2002 World Cup. I talked about hosting South Korea and Japan when they made it all the way to the semifinals. I mean, could we see a repeat of that?
Now, these teams, Mikael, are these teams still, would you still put the label of underdogs for them? Or you'd say that they're all contenders since they're here?
I mean, seeing what we've seen, the amount of sheer upsets in this tournament has been unprecedented. So you never know. All the big teams, they're cracks in their foundations, right? I mean, obviously, Brazil lost, but it was a B-side. France lost, but it was a B-side. But even a B-side France-Brazil should be able to beat the teams that they were going up against, right?
Absolutely.
The Cameroons and the Tunisias of the world. They should be able to beat them even with a B-side.
And maybe what that I'm getting to is that the amount of money you're playing all these guys, because most of these guys, even with the B-side, are playing top-level football and getting played lots of dineros. And whereas you've got the Moroccans and you've got the Canadians, I'll tell you, I was really impressed by the Canadians. Alphonso Davis, what's the other guy's name? Jonathan. And these guys play second-tier football. So basically, I think 80% of them are really overpaid.
Yeah. I mean, certainly played some really exciting football, but I think the main thing, my issue with what a lot of these teams were doing, right, you feel the B-side for the last game of the groups because you assume you're going in, but when you end up actually losing and it goes against you, I think it's a bit of a bump on the morale, right, because now you've lost your last game, you're going into the knockouts off the back of a loss. It does something to a team, I think.
Yeah, sure. Okay, there's just so much. I mean, I was trying to scribble down what am I going to talk about. I mean, what we could talk about is we still have the favorites, which are Brazil, which are odds-on favorite. You've got France coming in second. You've got Argentina, Spain, England, Portugal. The Dutch Croatia and Japan right up there. Australia, of course, the least of chances. Let's talk about last week's highlights.
Yeah, obviously tons of games, and let's start off with the Dutch. That was the first of the group stage final games. Pretty easy routine win against Qatar.
But talking about the Dutch, the one criticism coming on Van Gaal is that he's not attacking enough. And
Not your traditional sort of classic, Cruyff era sort of Dutch team, yes, but I think it's a mixed bag for them. They're still trying to figure out a lot of things. There's some good news, there's some bad news, right? The good news is you've got Gapco, for example. He's scoring on a regular basis. I think he has about 3 or 4 goals that he scored in the group stage. So he's looking pretty good.
He's
You
exciting.
got Memphis back in the team, and he was looking pretty pacey as well. And they have a solid midfield trio as well between Blind and a couple of their other players. So they're looking good, and I think they're still sort of getting their wits about them. I think we're going to see them get better and better potentially as the tournament goes on.
Because, I mean, the reason I said this, and it's funny that you mentioned Cruyff, is because they were a football team to notice in the 70s, in between 74. They've got pedigree. 74, of course, they lost the final to West Germany, which was a classic with Gerd Müller. And Gerd Müller, of course, was the original number 9. And then 78, that final against Argentina, the Marius Kempers one. And then the one that they lost against Spain, I think it was 2010, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then you haven't seen much of the Dutch side, and what you have seen is just dullish football.
Yeah.
I mean, for lack of a better word.
It's hard to predict with the Dutch. They're usually hit or miss. Brazil comes into a World Cup, you automatically peg them as favorites. France come in, they have such a deep squad, you peg them as favorites. With the Dutch, you just never know what you're going to get, and that's what their tournament has sort of been. It's been a mixed bag, but I think they're looking better and better. Like another team that I would say is also looking a little bit better and better that we can talk about is England, right? Southgate obviously came under heavy fire after that second game, the listless draw against the USA. Made a couple of changes, 4 to 5 changes. I think he brought in Foden. I think everyone and their grandmothers were asking about, where's Phil Foden? Why is this super talent not being allowed to shine, not being allowed to play? And he comes in and scores a goal.
But England again have over the years, every major tournament, whether it's Euro or the World Cup, they're tipped as one of the favorites and fail miserably every time, except the last couple of years.
Yeah,
the last couple of years,
the narrative has changed.
Is changed. They lost the Euro against Italy. The previous World Cup they made it, and this team, like you said, is looking good.
It's a young team, typically, and I talked about this on the show last week, right? Typically, England, superstar team, right? The Lampards and the Gerrards and the Michael Owens and the Rooneys and the Ferdinands, a lot of big personalities. And this team, obviously there are big personalities, but it's a younger, more dynamic team. He has a lot to play around with. And again, like I said, right, he brought in, made the changes, Rashford back in the squad and had a phenomenal game.
Rashford's looking good.
2 goals. And very positive attacking changes he made. That was the criticism they came under against the US, right? But let's give credit to USA as well. Out of all the teams, you talk about fitness and physicality, I think no one recognizes and plays their strengths as much as the USA does. They know that from a technical standpoint, maybe not the most earth-shattering team, but from a physicality, from a stamina, from a pace, from a pressing perspective, they more than make up for all of that.
I totally agree, and I think it's going to be a tough game.
I don't think it's a given win. I think it's Netherlands versus USA. Correct.
That's the earlier one.
Yeah, that's a tough game. I see it being a cagey affair, with 1 goal potentially being the difference. We can get into the knockouts a little bit later, but yeah, I think that's going to be a very tough game. It's not a given that Netherlands is going to win that by any means.
Right. We'll come back to the knockout game, but like I said, just run us through the week's highlights.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one.
So unfortunately, the great Irani dream came to an end. I mean, it was so exciting to see them, win their second group stage match. Had such high hopes for them, but
heartwarming scenes at the end of the game. I mean, where you had the Americans hugging them, and there were Iranian
always
players
great to see. I mean, that's what football does, right?
Yeah,
it brings people together. For the amount of time that is. All the criticism that Qatar got, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a proponent of that at one point. Obviously, there's a lot of things underlying that are going on, but at the end of the day, once the football starts, once that ball is
It's
kicked, once the whistle blows, all of
everybody
that,
forgets. Absolutely,
everyone forgets about all of that. But
Yeah.
Iran, man, the Pulisic with the only difference maker. But again, the USA, they looked really strong in the first half. The second half, interestingly enough, they did start to fade a little bit, and that
They
might
did.
be an issue coming in because they put so much into their first half. They start the game off and they're pressing.
And I'm not too sure when they're taking on the Dutch team, the bench for the USA. So
Yeah, not a very deep bench, but sad to see Iran go out. We also had it was the group stage of upsets. How many upsets did we have? We had just to kick it off. We had Argentina, Saudi Arabia. Last day of the group stage, we had Tunisia, France as well.
we had Tunisia, France. Absolutely, that's not a bad team. Also, what else?
It was a B squad. It was a B French squad. However, they had Rabiot was out, Upamecano, Konate. They didn't have their A team. However, a B team French squad should still be able to beat Tunisia, I think.
Although I don't want to give in to rumors, but apparently word is that there's some discontent between the players and Didier Deschamps.
I guarantee you, whatever discontent there is in the French team was like absolutely nothing compared to what was probably going on in the Belgian team. That's a team that just absolutely fell apart.
It's funny. I was going to talk about that. I have never. Now you pay somebody like Lukaku an amount that I cannot even. It's just unbelievable. And the man misses. I counted about 5 sitters that somebody. And I think the problem is that Lukaku is way too big and way too slow.
Yeah. Problem is they don't have that's Batshuayi, right? But he's not really. They don't have a proven goal scorer other than Lukaku. The issue with Lukaku is he's coming back from injury and he's also out of form. And we've seen this work in the past with players where, like, even if they didn't perform for club, when the World Cup comes around, all of a sudden they have a phenomenal performance, which leads to a transfer later in the season. Lukaku, he's just not there. But it's not just him, it's the entire team. The golden era for Belgium was last World Cup. That was their best chance of winning, and I think they finished in the top 4.
And these were most of the guys were the same guys playing the squad.
A lot of the guys were the same guys, but again, like someone like Hazard even, I mean, went to Madrid and his career just came to a standstill. Injuries upon injuries, and hasn't looked like the same player since. Witsel went to China for a year, came back to the world of football after making those big bucks, and again, not the same player. And then the back line is a little bit old as well, so it just everything went wrong for Belgium. It reminded me actually of the French team from the 2010 World Cup,
who got knocked out.
Anelka is fighting with Dominic.
Yeah.
Dominic's proposing to his girlfriend on TV. It was comedy, absolute comedy.
Yeah, that's right.
Proposing to his girlfriend on TV.
On live TV, that was an absolute joke. Any other games that you want to mention that you thought that we had to talk about? But I tell you what, we need to go to a break. I keep forgetting because once we get into the conversation, quick ad break, and we're going to be back. Right, I was trying to sort out and figure out, since we went back to 1974, the World Cup, so I better get back to 22. Some of the games and the highlights I was talking to Mikael about. What about Germany, Costa Rica, the evening where Japan was taking on Espanyol?
I would say the greatest night of international football I've ever witnessed.
Incredible.
Again, like I said,
it was incredible. 4-2. Beating Costa Rica. But you do realize that Costa Rica football is like a religion in Costa Rica. Everybody plays football.
I didn't know it was that big, but I mean...
And their captain's retiring, I think.
I don't know if I can say you got a feel for the Germans because it is the second consecutive... I think the last World Cup when they went out, that was the first time since the 30s.
Not too many years back, 1934.
Since that Germany didn't make it, because Germany's a team that's traditionally they've always done well.
They've always
done all right.
Yeah.
Rich history, obviously won quite a few World Cups. How many have they won at this point? 3?
I think 3.
I think about 3
Brazil's
World Cups.
got 4. I think they've got 3. Unless somebody wants to message in on 0314 289-8989, which is the WhatsApp number. And
please interact with us.
Yeah.
So we have something else to talk about. We're getting a little lonely in here. Pick up the phone, shoot over a text. But no, the 1-0 both games going into halftime, right? All of a sudden, and I was watching the Germany game. I had no idea what was going on in the Spain game. My phone blows up.
Hey, wait, we weren't interested in the first Spain game. Once the Spaniards scored.
Because you assume that, come on, Spain...
Sure.
They're going to walk over them.
Sure.
So the main game to watch is Germany.
Sure.
If Germany can beat Costa Rica and Spain beats Japan, Spain and Germany, the group favorites
Sure.
go through.
Sure.
However, none of that happened. Japan, questionable goal. Questionable
The
goal.
line goal.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
not sold on it 100%.
Neither am I. I can't understand what the VAR saw, but we'll talk about VAR in just a bit. We'll just talk about the games right now. Where does Germany go from here? I mean,
Flick
they've got
should be sacked for sure.
they start all over again because Flick took over from a guy who they said should be sacked immediately, which was.
He got things going, but I mean, their last game against Costa Rica, they looked great. They actually looked very good. And they've got great young talent, right? Musiala, Gnabry was looking phenomenal as well. But just it came too late. This should have been the way they were playing from game one.
They've got Musiala, and I think he's a great talent. He's 19 years old. He's tipped as the next Messi, but they don't have a genuine number 9.
And Muller is not the answer. Muller's prime was between 2010 and 2016 Euros.
And he's saying goodbye.
2018, nope. 2020, nope. And this year, like I think that game, even though they won 4-2, I don't think he touched the ball even once, maybe in the first half.
No, they did not. And that happens 4-2, and Japan beat Spain 2-1.
I mean, Japan beating Spain. I mean, I didn't know what to watch. I was switching between channels, and it's just this is unheralded, unprecedented, unheralded. Spain are not the team that typically. Actually, the biggest Spanish upset before this, I would say, was actually another Asian team, again in 2002 when Korea beat them.
That's right. Korea beat them.
Very
you talk
controversial
about
game.
Spain and how their football has changed. And I'll have to go back again to Johan Cruyff, is the man who actually changed it, that style of play, because he did that with Barcelona. And Barcelona, Spain, the same kind of, and he came out with tiki-taka for Barcelona when he took over Barcelona.
Yep.
And he brought in a guy called, who used to play in Barcelona, called Pep Guardiola.
That's right. As a central midfielder.
As a central midfielder. And his philosophy was that, for me, football is not about just winning, but we have to win it beautifully. We have to play it beautifully.
Absolutely.
And there was one game that you need to watch, Mikael, by the way, is the final of Holland versus West Germany, where it all started, where the game started, 15 passes. Johan Cruyff kicks the ball, 15 passes non-stop, and they give the ball back to Johan Cruyff, who takes it to the penalty spot. Uli Hoeneß drops him, and they score a goal, and Germany still hadn't touched the ball. So
amazing.
He was an incredible football player. But getting back to...
speaking of good football, I do want to shout out the Senegalese team.
Oh, incredible.
I mean, again, England, I don't think... I think England and Senegal have never played against each other in the World Cups. This is a first time for them. And again, even though England are looking good, I don't think it's a walkover. That Senegal team is stacked with great talent. And imagine if Mane was there.
I think it's got 1-1 written all over and penalties.
We know what's going to happen if that goes to penalties. England's track record with penalties is absolutely an abomination.
Was I here on kickoff when I said I'm going to make a bold prediction about Germany going out? Was I here? The recording should be here.
I think you were.
The recording. Oh, I get a heads up.
Let's make sure to cut that bit out so he doesn't get too ahead of himself.
Okay.
He's going to talk about this for the next 3 months. So
let's get back now. Let's get down to the games. I mean, we don't have enough time.
Just one quick thing. I think it is important to talk about because there have been some very dubious VAR decisions. Just one.
VAR.
Especially
everybody's talking about it.
There was the initial Argentina penalty, right, where he brought him down the box, a little dubious. The Messi penalty in their last match, where Chesney goes up and his hand hits Messi's face, but that's after Messi made contact with the head, and it was missing anyways. Right. Ridiculous.
I thought that was ridiculous.
Absolutely
also.
ridiculous.
I mean, the goalkeeper had
harder than me.
Absolutely no choice.
When he saved it, I celebrate to the moon because they didn't deserve that.
No, they did not. And the goalkeeper, if you look at it, had absolutely no choice. He did the right thing. He went. Yeah.
I mean, they end up winning anyways. Again, Argentina, another team, just like England, that are peaking at the right time. They started off with that shock defeat to Saudi Arabia.
And they've got a relatively easier game today. Well, when I say relatively...
you never know.
You never know. If
this
a team
World
has
Cup,
made it, you never know. I agree with you totally.
That was a bit... I mean, then, of course, the Japan one, the ball, like... a fraction of a fraction touching the line.
What was the referee what was he looking at? What was the VAR saying to him when this happened?
I mean, if that didn't happen, then Germany would today be in the knockouts.
Absolutely.
So Germans around the world are probably, I mean, from being the best of allies many years ago to a time we don't talk about to now probably being the worst of enemies.
Right.
Germany
But
and
it's
Japan.
but it's sad to see the Germans where they are, because the Germans play computer-like football. It's
not so much anymore. I feel like Musiala, for example, I think he had the record for most completed dribbles out of anyone this tournament.
He's young.
That kid
He'll only get better.
Absolutely special. The ball is glued to his foot. It was a joy to watch him play. Actually,
I think it was.
I wish we had more of him to watch.
The last match, I think towards the end, there was some magic that he showed.
Yeah, he looked fantastic.
Yeah,
but again, just upsets, and more upsets. Right? We had Brazil, even though that was a B Brazil squad. But even a B Brazil squad has the likes of Rodrigo, Anthony.
You mean losing to Cameroon?
Martinelli. What a win for Cameroon. Abu Bakar.
Brazil has got so much talent. I mean, Neymar, a fit Neymar. The guy with the bicycle. I get that. That's it. I get the sign once again. We've got to go play a song. We're going to be back on kickoff. We'll come back and talk about the big ones, which are happening tonight, 8 p.m. Karachi time and midnight. Stick around. We've got the early match, 8 o'clock Karachi time, which is the Dutch taking on the USA.
Yeah, let's talk about the games. Let's give our prediction for the games and how we think they're going to go. But Netherlands, USA again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I don't think it's a very straightforward game for the Dutch. They are looking better. I think the team is getting together. They're playing a little more seamlessly. But again, for the USA, I think it'll depend on how they look after the first 60 minutes. Again, the first 45 minutes, they press. They play very aggressively, very physical, running a lot. But it'll be interesting to see if they fade or not. If they don't fade, it'll be a tight game. But if they do fade, I can see the Dutch getting a goal a little bit later on.
And they've got a master tactician in Louis van Gaal. You know who's approaching him? Apparently, that's what one's hearing, is the Belgium team.
That could work. Van Gaal is a little. I don't know how many more years he maybe has left in him. He's been doing this for quite some time, but Martinez is such a great manager. I don't think the blame. Yes, the coach, the manager always does take the most flack, but in this case, I think there was just so much going on.
If you've got somebody like Lukaku who's missing six hitters, there's nothing that the manager does any.
And I think something has to be said about the fact that this World Cup's being hosted in the winter. Typically, if this was in the summer, and if anyone's listening, please correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like in the summer you get a little bit more time to play together as a team.
Sure.
And for the manager, if there are any issues, be able to weed those out, be able to identify them early. The fact that it's in the winter, I feel like things were maybe a little bit more rushed. Sure. And you have all these personalities coming from wherever. Someone's girlfriend is seeing someone else. I don't know what issues were going on. There were all these rumors. It was insane.
Yeah.
It's not what you want to deal with going into a World Cup.
In the Belgium team, you're absolutely right. It was a bit of a soap opera. But I need to thank the person who messaged in and corrected and said that Brazil's won it 5 times, Germany 4. And the French have won it twice, the World Cup. Second one is at midnight Karachi time, which is the mighty Argentinians, ranked second, were second favorites. Belgium was ranked second, by the way, by FIFA, not Argentina. And they're taking on the Australians.
I would say much more of a predictable game. But again, Australia, resilience, right? They lost their first game 4-1 to France, came back, won their second game, and then they won their final group game as well. So they, off the back of 2 victories, only the second time since 2006 that Australia's qualified for the knockouts. If anyone can remember that 2006, that run of theirs where they came up against the eventual champions, Italy, the infamous Grasso.
Yes,
I think it was Grasso.
That's right.
Where minimal contact, went down in the box, scored the penalty, 1-0, Australia.
And the Italians are absolute masters at doing. So your prediction on this one, Mikael? Let's have your prediction for the first one. What's the score?
The first one, I would say 1-0 Netherlands.
1-0 Netherlands. I say
Gakpo again to get a goal. I would imagine.
I say 1-1. 1-1.
1-1 penalties?
That's right. 1-1 penalties.
Heartbreaking for whoever loses, but I think 1-0 Dutch is a maybe 1-0, maybe 2-0 with a goal in extra time.
All right. And Australia, Argentina? All eyes on one man, of course, Messi.
I mean, Messi.
I'm not. Look, listen. I mean, I'm not too sure that the Argentinians are going to win this easily because you've got people like Angel Di Maria, who's not the same player that he was. He's slowed down.
They do have good young attacking talent, though. They've got, I think, Martinez, who's a striker for City, who scored in their last game.
He did.
McAllister, who also scored in their last game. You've got Lautaro Martinez. You've got Dybala, who's barely even played, but obviously a phenomenal player. We all know what he's capable of. And you've got Messi pulling the strings. So they've got the talent. They've bounced back from that shock defeat to Saudi Arabia, and they're looking good. But again, this Australia side is very resilient, and I think they're going to give them a run for their money. I'm saying 2-1 Argentina.
2-1 Argentina. What do we have tomorrow?
So tomorrow we start with Japan-Croatia, which, again, very interesting team. Japan coming off I mean, who would have predicted that Japan would hold a win over Spain?
Yeah.
And I think they beat Germany as well.
That's right.
Spain and Germany. Japan beat both of them in the groups. I mean, that's just...
Two scalps, two heavyweights.
You can't help but get behind this Japanese team. And I really would want them to win. Again, Croatia, and you've seen this a lot. It's a running theme with this World Cup, and it happens, right? There's a couple of teams you can point to, and you can say that this team isn't the team from 4 years ago, but it's the same players. Croatia is one of those examples. I'd say Uruguay was another example, and we saw them go out, right? Cavani, Suarez, Godin, like all these players were players from two World Cups ago or one World Cup ago. So I think we're seeing that with Croatia as well, an aging side. Modric, love him as a player. I think one of the most criminally underrated central midfielders of all time. He should be up there with the Pirlos and the Scholeses and the Javis and the Iniestas, but I'm going to go with the Japan victory. I'm going to say 2-1 again. 2-1 Japan.
2-1 Japan.
2-1
Well,
Japan
you know
for this
what?
one.
I was actually going to say 2-1 also Japan. And what's the midnight game?
And then we've got Brazil, Korea. How can you not get behind this Korean team? The jubilation, the reactions, the celebrations after they beat Portugal and secured their qualification.
Getting behind is one thing. Who's going to win?
I mean, I would like to say the Koreans, but
it's a lot of talent this Brazilian team has.
I think Brazil. I think it'll be close initially, and I think Brazil are going to pull away the later the game goes. So I'm going to say 3-1.
3-1?
3-1 for this one.
3-1 for Brazil.
I think Brazil's going to pull away.
Okay, so Mikael gives it 3-1. I give it 2-1 to Brazil.
2-1 to Brazil. Slightly more cagey. Again, they're going to have a full-side squad back. They played their B team last time. But like I said, the B team with the likes of Rodrigo. So you'll see Vinicius back in the team as well. They tried Jesus out. Obviously, he didn't score. But Rich Arlison will be back in there. It's going to be very, very tough to beat this team.
What do we have on Monday?
And then Monday, we've got France-Poland.
That is a tricky one. Now, that is a tough one to call.
I don't think it's actually too tough because what we did see from Poland's last performance was that they have issues connecting between defense and attack. Somewhere in that midfield area, things sort of go wrong. Lewandowski's not really getting any service. I felt for him. I mean, as someone who's long time ago played in sort of that role, being a striker and just not getting any type of ball service is a very frustrating thing to deal with, having to do everything on your own. So he's just not getting the service, and I feel like that's going to continue. I don't see that changing. And I think this one's actually quite straightforward. I think France should rout them. Rout them. I think rout them.
Really?
I'm going to go with probably 3-0, maybe even 4.
I'm going to go with 1-0 France. Les Bleus.
Allez
les Bleus.
I think this should be an easy win for France. This Poland team is not again, they just lack a lot of creativity in the middle of the park.
1-0 to France. And what's the second game, the later one?
And then we've got England-Senegal, which is the neutral favorite game of the entire pick because, by default, we all watch the Premier League. Everyone wants to see England.
Senegal is also the highest ranked African team.
And I just love their manager, man. The manager was part of the same team that had that famous win over France in the 2002 World Cup. Cissé. He was in that team where I think that was the first World Cup Senegal made, and that was the first time they ever qualified. And this is the first time since then that they've qualified for the knockouts. So just an incredible story being written over here. And as much as I would like to see the English do well, I just Actually, Senegal is my team for this World Cup.
So you think there could be an upset out here?
I think it'll be hard for there to be an upset. Again, like I said, imagine if Mane was playing. It would just be a whole different story, I feel. But again, the Senegalese team, they're no joke. They have a phenomenal squad. And I think it'll be close. I think
I'm giving this one 1-1 also and penalties.
I think this one could go to penalties. I agree with that. Maybe I'll go.
I
for
think
2-2.
you're saying that because it's England and England.
My
every
only
World
hope
Cup.
that England loses is penalties because they have not been able to conquer that for as long as they've been a country.
So 1-1 and then penalties.
1-1 and then penalties.
Okay.
That would be my call. So
what do we have on Tuesday?
And then just to round out, we've got Morocco, Spain, which that'll be an interesting cultural sort of clash as well, right? A lot of
And Morocco's
Spanish
got some
influence.
interesting players also. I mean, in the World Cup, you saw some of these guys and some of these guys are playing in second tier clubs, by the way.
Yeah.
And
They've got a lot of players playing in the French league, so I think it should be a routine win for Spain. And then just to round off, we've got Portugal versus Switzerland. Again, Portugal, they didn't win their last game. Ronaldo looks a bit dejected and frustrated up front. Obviously, he scored in that first game. It was a penalty. There was that VAR goal that he got disallowed, which, he claims his hair hit it. I will say that with that goal, if Ronaldo hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been a goal. So he should get credit, but I think Portugal should take that versus the Swiss.
Well, there you have it. You know what? We could probably go on for another 60 minutes, but we're running out of time. Mikael, it's great to have you on Kickoff. I look forward to seeing you again next.
Always.
Thank you. Hasta la vista.